Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And of course, there are plenty of stories in the NFL to start this season, but there are a lot of them that involve quarterbacks. And I thought to myself, who would be the best person to talk about quarterbacks, quarterback play, and just all that's going on that involves quarterbacks? I reached out to a Hall of Famer that needs no introduction, but I tried to give him one. That would be Mr. Warren Moon. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine. I was kind of like, man, I got to give him kind of a pretty good introduction. You're talking about these quarterbacks since he kind of is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion.
Well, I appreciate that. That's all you need to say right there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, quarterback play. Of course, there's plenty of storylines. There's top 10 lists where people are arguing back and forth. But there's always two guys that get mentioned and have been mentioned over the past, 10, 15 years. That would be Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Now, both of these guys are not necessarily considered the number one QBs. A lot of people are taking Patrick Mahomes in that instance at this point. But do you think these two will both be at the top again in terms of quarterback play this year?
I think you're going to be right near the top. I know Aaron Rodgers lost a lot when he lost Devontae Adams, but nobody knew who Devontae Adams was before he got with Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers has a way of making, receivers become stars in this league. So again, they did lose a lot, but I think what Aaron demands of his receivers, he's going to get some good play out of the ones that he has left. And he's got some guys that he's played with, like Randall Cobb, who, if he can stay healthy, he's somebody that's had a lot of success with Aaron Rodgers. And he's got his tight end, Robert Tonyan. I think he's back this year, so that's kind of a security blanket for him. And then Alan Lazard did a great job for him last year. I think he caught 40 balls and 8 touchdowns, so he's probably ready to take off and kind of make his own mark. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think they're going to do it a little different way. They're going to spread the ball around a little bit more and not focus on one guy like they did with Devontae, and they're going to run the ball as well. And even their running back, Jones, he caught over 50 balls last year. So they're going to do it a lot of different ways as opposed to just, having, I think, Adams had, I think, 167 targets last year or something like that. So that's going to go away. It'll probably be spread around a little bit more.
Gotcha. And as far as Tom Brady, I mean, looking at that team, they lost a lot of linemen in terms of free agency, and now with injuries going on along that offensive line, their first and second string center, I believe, were out, and I'm pretty sure both are out for the season, I believe. Do you think he's able to put up these numbers despite the offensive line not necessarily being the greatest like it was last year?
Well, again, he's probably going to have to do it a little different way as well this year because of the loss of, especially that interior part of his offensive line, those two guards in the center. That's where Tom needs more protection than most quarterbacks because he's going to be in the pocket. And if you usually put pressure on him, it's up the middle where he can't step and throw the football. And that's why those guards have to be solid in there. So unless they have some really good backups, to be able to keep that pocket nice and solid, he probably will have to go to some different forms of protection and maybe do a little bit more maximum protection, maybe keep a back end a little bit more, maybe keep a tight end more in block, and they've done that a lot in the past anyway. And maybe not send as many receivers out so they can make sure they have good protection for Tom to get the ball out of there. So again, they'll figure out a way to get it done. Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator, and also Tom, and they'll figure out the best way to get the ball out, whether it's you're using the quick game or going no huddle, which keeps defenses on their heels as well. There's a lot of different things you can do when your offensive line isn't up to par with injuries and that, and then you have a very experienced quarterback who kind of knows where he's going with the ball before the snap, so he's not going to hold it very long.
Gotcha. It would definitely be interesting just to see because everyone wonders when they're going to have a point of falling off. People wonder, but we'll hopefully for their teams and for them and their legacies, that doesn't happen this season. But another quarterback that people are talking about, which he's definitely gets his share of criticism and his share of love, is Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson is a dynamic player. He can do about anything on the field. He can throw the football, contrary to what people think. But he does a lot of different things on the field. Now, but one thing he doesn't have on the field, and of course he is very important, is an actual deal. A lot of quarterbacks got paid, but for some reason, of course, there's rumors of what different reasons. There was no deal reached between him and the Ravens this offseason. So I just wanted to ask you, do you think he should have even stepped on the field without a deal this offseason or this season?
I don't think he should, but I think he feels like he should. I think he feels like he wants to go out and play this season and improve what he can do and maybe become the highest paid player in the league. He's kind of betting on himself. I know he's been offered a lot of money. He probably hasn't been offered as much as he wants, but I think he's been offered a ton of money, more than Kyler Murray, and maybe not as much guaranteed money as he probably wants, like a Deshaun Watson or something like that. But he's been offered a lot of money. So I think they're going to get it done before the season starts, because they've still got two weeks before the season actually gets started. And usually these deals come right down to the deadlines before they get done. But if it doesn't get done, it wouldn't surprise me if he went into the season betting on himself. And the only thing that worries me is the way he plays. He's more susceptible to injury than most other quarterbacks. And then the Ravens could always franchise him next year if they want to as well, which would be a really high franchise number, but they still have those options in their back pocket.
Yeah, definitely. It's something to watch. Another thing to watch as well is the development of Lamar Jackson. Now, much is made about him and his passing and, of course, lack thereof in some instances. But to me, just from a perspective of watching and knowing who his offensive coordinator is, I don't necessarily think he's been necessarily developed or put in the greatest position to develop, just based off of, the offenses that I've seen from Greg Roman over the years. Would you think that's an accurate assessment, or is it more kind of a combination of both Roman and Lamar Jackson? Because to me, just from what I saw of him over his career, Lamar Jackson, in Louisville, he was actually a very, very good passer that a lot of people don't want to give credit or talk about. But it seems like to me he hasn't developed to take it to that next level at the NFL. And to me, that I think some of that has to do with the offensive coordinator or the scheme, or the challenging of developing him there at the NFL level.
Well, it's definitely the scheme. They run a more different scheme than anybody else in the league. He's probably one of the only guys that can run this type of offense, because he's not your quote unquote typical quarterback. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to sit in the pocket but has the ability to move around. He's a more dynamic quarterback that's going to run the football so many times, but he also is going to be able to throw the ball from the pocket as well. And a lot of the things that have to do with perfecting your game as a passer, you need to work on those things in the offseason. If you need to get with a quarterback coach or whatever it might be to do that. I know Josh Allen did that when he first came in the league, and he got with Jordan Palmer, Carson Palmer's brother, and really improved his fundamentals and his techniques and his accuracy. And he took a lot of big leaps from his second year to his third and fourth year. So that's something that I think if Lamar wants to get better at those things, he might have to take it on himself and try and improve on his own in the offseason and just put the time in. But as far as the offense that they run, they're going to run the football, and they're going to have a lot of backs. They're going to have a lot of tight ends on their roster. They're not going to have a lot of big-time receivers. That's just not what they do. So I think Lamar understands that, and I don't think he's complained anything about it. So it's going to be up to him whether he wants to take his game as a passer to the next level or not.
Definitely, definitely. As far as a guy that is also expected to take his game to the next level this upcoming season, that would be Mr. Herbert out there in Los Angeles. A lot of people like him to take that leap and take the Chargers into the playoffs this year. I have to kind of get used to calling them. I'm still getting used to calling them the Los Angeles Chargers instead of the San Diego Chargers. But a lot of people are looking for him to take that leap and lead the Chargers into the playoffs. And would you rank him as a guy that you say could be a top 10 quarterback, even though he hasn't necessarily led his team to the playoffs or had substantial success in the NFL so far?
I already put him in the top 10. I think he's one of the top quarterbacks in this league right now. I mean, his numbers have proved it over his first 2 years. He's thrown the football for as many yards and touchdowns as any other quarterback in history. He just didn't happen to have a really great defense, and his coach made some gambles in certain situations on fourth downs and that I think really cost their team a couple of games where they could have been in the playoffs last year. So I don't think the reason why they're not in the playoffs is because of Justin, but he's definitely holding up his end of the bargain. Of course, a quarterback can always do better if a team isn't getting to the playoffs, and I think he will have a better season this year. I think he'll just continue to keep getting better. But I don't think that it's all his fault that they haven't gotten to the playoffs this year. But I consider him one of the top, 5-7 quarterbacks in the league right now.
All right, all right. Now, of course, we did talk about the quarterbacks that are around the league and a little bit of that flavor as well. But we do have to talk about the quarterbacks in the AFC South, since this is the Touring the AFC South show. And of course, one of the talking points a lot for the Tennessee Titans has been Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis. It started with Ryan Tannehill talking about not being, it's not his job to be his mentor or whatever it was saying, even though he does give him tips and stuff with things like that in practice as well. And now it's gone to kind of critiquing Malik Willis during his starts in the preseason. And you have some that are saying, oh, he looks great, let him be the starter now and let him just grow and develop. And you have others that are, going the opposite way and saying, well, he looks like he's a few years away. Get rid of the ball, throw the ball, and wanting him to be great off top. I mean, it's a little mind-boggling to me, and it's a little frustrating because he's a very talented player. What would you say, in your opinion, in terms of his kind of schedule to progress, would be the kind of, the big thing for him to be in terms of showing progression towards being a starter?
Well, I think he should take his time. I don't think they should rush him out on the field. He still has some things to learn and be polished on. And you look at a Pat Mahomes and some of those guys that didn't play their first year in the league very much. I think being able to sit back and watch and learn and understand what it takes to be a professional quarterback, especially from a veteran, I think will only help you down the road. There's no hurry for you to get on the field unless the team had a real strong need at that position, which I don't think they do, or if the starter got hurt, then you're rushed into playing time. But other than that, there's no hurry for you to be out there. Just learn the position and learn the finer points of the position. And I think his time will come. But Ryan Tannehill can still play the game. There's no question about it. He did have a bad playoff game last year. He had a tough season with all the injuries from his wide receivers in and out of the lineup, and Julio Jones never really became the guy that everybody thought he could be when he came there. So I thought Ryan really battled through all of that last year, but the bad playoff game did not help him as far as that's the last thing everybody saw was the fact that he didn't play well in the playoff game, and everybody wants to get rid of you after that one bad game. So I think we all know he's a really good quarterback, and I think he'll bounce back this year if he can get some consistent play from his outside receivers. He lost A.J. Brown. That was a big loss. He doesn't have Julio Jones anymore, so we'll have to see who the guys are that are going to step up and take over the replacement of those guys.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see, especially the chemistry develop between newly acquired Robert Woods. Then you have Racey McMath. You have Nick Kenny Westbrook, or Westbrook Kenny. I'm sorry. And then you have a Treylon Burks, who's an intriguing prospect in his own right. Of course, I gotta mention Kyle Phillips, who has been pretty unguardable during camp with in the slot position. Too. So definitely you mentioned
not household names, but this is their time to shine. So hopefully they can step up and become the players they need to be to help this football team, because they lost two really, really good receivers. One that's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Another one who's headed that direction if he continues to keep playing the way he is. So when you lose all of that in 1 year, it's going to take a lot for some young guys to step up and make their name.
Definitely. Now, you did mention Ryan Tannehill in that playoff game, and being here in Nashville, you currently you hear about it over and over and over again. With anything that he does, you continue to hear about it. What could be some of the best advice you probably could give Ryan Tannehill going into this season, based upon how last season ended and the kind of perception out there for him?
Well, I think the only thing he can do is get back out on the field and just play good. Let us play, do all the talking. I'm sure nobody's saying anything in his face, but if I was him, I would stay away from any type of social media, any type of media that people might be talking about my play or critiquing my play. Just try and get that out of your mind. You know what you did wrong in that game. You watched the tape. You understand exactly what you need to do to improve. So there's really nothing you can do about that game. It's in the past, and you have to keep moving forward. So in order to not get to dwell on it, just kind of keep yourself away from any of that type of talk and any of that type of poison that's out there, and just get ready to get back on the field, have a great training camp, great preseason, and you get ready to play the season, and you let your play quiet everybody else down from what happened last year.
Definitely good advice, and for the Titans fans, I'm sure they're hoping that Ryan Tannehill kind of rebounds to the guy that first took over for Marcus Mariota back a few years ago. Now, of course, there's another guy taking over in the Colts this year, which is their fifth quarterback in 5 years. Of course, if those that don't remember, it's Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett. Then you had Phillip Rivers. Then you had Carson Wentz. Now you have Matt Ryan. Now, Matt Ryan comes in off of being probably arguably the greatest quarterback in Atlanta Falcons history. And now he's in a new situation here with the Colts. And of course, expectations are to make the playoffs. But can he do enough to make them not only a playoff team, but a contending team in the AFC?
I think he can. He was in a Super Bowl 3 years ago or something like that, and was the MVP of the league. Indianapolis is a team that's good enough roster-wise to go to a Super Bowl. They have a really outstanding running game. They have a top 5 defense in the league. They create turnovers. The biggest question is, do they have enough outside firepower as far as being able to throw the football? But when you bring in a guy like Matt Ryan, who's very efficient, who's going to take care of the football, he's going to make the right decisions and reads. As long as he doesn't, screw things up, I think they're going to be okay. He just needs to play consistent football, because he doesn't have to win every game, especially at his age now. I think when he's 38 years old or something like that, he doesn't have to win the game himself. There's going to be games where he's going to have to make some big throws, and I think he can still do that. But they're not relying on him to go out there and he's going to have to throw for 300 yards every week, because you have this outstanding running game. So he'll be able to play more situational football. They'll be more balanced offensively, and I think that plays right into his strengths for where he is in his career right now. So as long as he's not turning the football over a ton, I think this team is going to be dangerous.
Now, you did mention, of course, he is a veteran quarterback at this point in time. And usually as you become a veteran, the strength of the arm is not necessarily the same as when once was when you first got in some instances, which means more of the mental game takes over. Now, mentally, in terms of how he's going to play, I mean, how strong do you think that mental part of the game is going to be for him in terms of taking this offense to another level?
Well, that's what he brings to the table. He brings the mental capacity that he's probably learned the offense. He works as hard as any quarterback in the league, and I'm sure he's been doing that all offseason. The great thing is they brought him in early and got the deal done where he could be there the whole offseason as well as training camp and preseason and all that. So that part of it, I think he'll master. Um, and then I think he's a little bit more rejuvenated now just because he's been in Atlanta so long. They haven't been very good the last few years. Now he gets a chance to go to a team that at least has a chance. And he's at the end of his career, probably 2 or 3 more years left in his career. So he's got a chance to maybe get back to a Super Bowl again. So that kind of lights a spark inside you and motivates you a little bit. So I think he's got that going for him as well, and that's probably what the team needs too, a little bit of a spark after the way things ended last year with Carson Wentz, and then the team wondering who our quarterback is going to be. And I'm sure they're excited to have Matt there now, and Matt's excited to be there because of possibilities. So I think it's a good combination that's going on right now in India.
Definitely, it's going to be interesting to watch. Along with the Titans, they'll be one of the teams to watch in this division. Now, another team that just might be a little bit to watch this year as to making the upward move would be the Jacksonville Jaguars, and of course they have former #1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence. Last year didn't go necessarily as well as he wanted it to. Along with the coaching issues, he wasn't necessarily having the type of production he was used to back at Clemson. Fast forward to this season, he has Doug Peterson as his head coach. He's got a few new weapons, a lot of renewed optimism down there in Jacksonville. What can you say is kind of the expectation, or what do you think is kind of the expectation of him in terms of taking the leap this season?
Well, yeah, last year was a very disappointing season, I'm sure, for him and the whole organization, especially with everything that happened with the coaching and that. Um, I think having Doug Peterson there is a really shot in the arm for him because he's got a guy now that played quarterback in the NFL. He's been a winner in this league. He's won a Super Bowl. He brings credibility to not only Trevor but to the whole football team. And then I think he's quarterback friendly. He'll know how to treat a quarterback from the head coaching side of it, and that's important as well. So I think just from all the things I've heard Trevor talk about this offseason, he's really pleased to have Doug Peterson there as a head coach and the things that he's brought in, the culture that he's brought into the team. And they have a lot of young talent on that team, so they're going to be much more competitive this year. How many games they win, I'm really not sure, but I would think they have a chance to win probably 7, 8 games this year. You just never know. But a lot of it's going to be based on how well Trevor plays and then how well their defense plays.
All right. Now, as far as Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to go and flip it on the other side. Say he comes in this year and he kind of struggles a little bit to start. What does that worry kind of pick up or enhance during the season about him and his play?
Well, it depends on why he's struggling. I don't think the kid's going to struggle if he's put in the right situation. Even last year, I thought he finished the season pretty strong his last 2 or 3 ball games. And I think he's going to build off of that coming into this season. I think he's just too good a player to be a bust. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think there's enough talent around him. Could they put more around him? Sure. I think any quarterback would always ask for more talent, but I think he's going to be good enough to keep this team competitive in most of their football games. Will they win them all? That's not going to happen, but they'll be a much more competitive team than they were last year, and I think for sure they'll win more games than they did last year.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that team with the additions, especially defensive additions with Olaquan from the Falcons and, of course, Trayvon Walker, and looking to see how he shows up in the as the #1 overall pick this year. So
Right.
It'll be interesting to watch the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know people haven't heard that said in a while. So, but But as far as the last team in the division, now I saved them for last, but it wasn't on purpose all the time. But I do think they'll be last in the division. That would be the Houston Texans, and of course they are quarterbacked by Davis Mills. Now last year it wasn't like he was supposed to be the guy last year. Tyler Taylor was, then he got hurt, and then Davis Mills stepped in, and they decided to go with him the rest of the season. Now going to this year, Tyler Taylor's in New York with the Giants, and it's Davis Mills' team. They're going to be looking at him to be the guy. As far as everything there, do you no, not many weapons, not a ton of weapons. They do have the best wide receiver, in my opinion, in the division, in Brandon Cooks. But as far as just total weapons, do you think there's enough weapons there for him to kind of develop and show he can be the guy for the Houston Texans?
I don't think there's enough there yet, but he really impressed me last year just because, for one, like you said, he took over because of the injury to Tyrod Taylor. So he wasn't expected to play very much, and he didn't play a whole lot of college football. And then you had the whole Deshaun Watson thing kind of swirling around the team. It kind of made it kind of a toxic environment for them. But Davis Mills came in there and played really, really good football. He probably played as well as any of the rookie quarterbacks that played last year, if you look at his numbers. So I think they were really encouraged by the way he handled everything, his maturity. He only got better and better as the season went along. And if he can build off of that starting into this year, again, they're going to be much more competitive. They won't win as many games just because they don't have those big time playmakers that you need to win games at the end. But I think he's a quarterback that's going to keep them in games, and I think Lovie Smith is going to have his team playing really hard, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So it won't be a cakewalk when you play the Houston Texans. They'll be a competitive team for you to play.
Now, speaking of his development going to the next season or this season, one guy's going to be key in that is offensive coordinator, Pep Hamilton, I believe, if I have everything correct. It was key in the development of one Andrew Luck as well. So, kind of drawing the comparisons here, of course, Stanford for Andrew Luck, Stanford for Davis Mills. How key do you think he'll be in the development of Mills this whole season?
Oh, he's going to be a key. There's no question. He was a key last year. Like you said, he did a great job with Davis and really got him playing some efficient football. And like I said, he improved every week that he was in there at the quarterback position. And now they have 2 years together, and that's very important for a young quarterback to have some continuity with your offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, because a lot of times when players go to bad teams, there's a lot of changeover in the coaching, and that changeover in the coaching just kind of sets you back. So I think it's important that Pep is with him for this second year, and I think you're going to see his growth happen because he's got that same continuity and that same chemistry with his coach, and also that same consistency that you're always looking for.
All right, all right. Now, of course, we've definitely gone through the AFC South and kind of toured around a lot of different quarterbacks in the NFL. One we didn't talk about was Kirk Cousins, but we're not going to go there on that one. That could go any other way. But what I do have for you is 5 questions and 2 answers. It's kind of my game portion of the show. So I'm going to give you 2 quarterbacks. I'm going to ask you to pick one.
All right.
You ready?
Is there a right answer to any of these?
It's the right answer for you. That's all I can say. All right, we have if you had to pick one quarterback, and we did talk about these 2 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson or Justin Herbert.
Wow. It depends on what type of offense we're going to run and what type of personnel we have. If we've got top flight wide receivers and a really good offensive line, I want Justin Herbert. If we're going to run the football and we're going to pound it, and we've got big tight ends and running backs, then I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. So I think a lot of it has to do with the personnel decisions on these 2 guys because they're so totally opposite.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. This one right here is gonna be interesting. We're going old school versus new school. The old school GOAT versus the new school GOAT. For some, we're going to say, just for some. Tom Brady or Joe Montana?
I've always been a huge Joe Montana fan. I mean, I played in the same era as him. He won 4 Super Bowls and never lost one. Never threw an interception in a Super Bowl. So, Joe was my number one guy up until Tom winning the 7th Super Bowl. That kind of changed my mind a little bit because he was able to go to another team and do it. But there's something about my era and just the way we played the game back in that day. I got to go with Joe Montana.
All right. Here's another one. This was for some was the de facto AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen?
Ooh, that's a good one too. It's a real. I mean, you can't argue with the success that Patrick Mahomes has had since he's been in the league in such a short period of time. In 5 years, he didn't play his first year, but maybe 1 or 2 games. But since then, he's been to 4 AFC Championship games. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, and he's won 1, but he's also won MVP. Where Josh Allen hasn't won MVP, he hasn't been to an AFC Championship game yet, and so I got to go with Patrick Mahomes just off the success that he's had over the first 4 years or 5 years of his career compared to Josh Allen, who started off really slow and has really gotten much better, especially over the last 2 years. They're 2 of the top quarterbacks in the league, but Patrick gets the nod just because of all the success that he's had.
All right. We're going with this will be an interesting one. I don't know which way you'll go with this one. Jalen Hurts or Kirk Cousins, if you had to pick them and going into this season.
Ooh, Kirk Cousins, I think, is going to be a better player only because his coach is an offensive-minded coach. I think he's going to get the most out of him. And he has talented receivers and a really good running back, too. So he's got a really good combination offensively. But I think the team that they put together in Philadelphia is a really, really good roster. They have probably one of the best offensive lines in the league, which is important for a young quarterback to have. And getting A.J. Brown to go along with some of the other receivers they have. I forgot the kid's name from Alabama.
Devontae Smith.
I mean, so everything is there for Jalen to have success. And I know he's worked his tail off because I can look at him and see that he's making better decisions with the football. And he's throwing football better from the pocket. But Kirk Cousins, he's a pretty established quarterback. He's thrown for a lot of yards in this league. That's a good one. That's a really good question. But you know what? I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the young guy. I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts and say that he's going to have a breakout season this year.
Well, me and you are thinking along the same lines because I think so as well. The last one. Now, this will be an interesting one. This is, I believe, the battle of the former number 1 picks. Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm going to go with Jared Goff. I really like what he's done and how he's handled that whole thing with the Rams when he went to Detroit. He's been to a Super Bowl already. He's been to the playoffs a number of times. I think Detroit's building something that's going to be pretty good there. They're still a little ways away, but I think they're going to be much more competitive this season. And I think a lot of that competitiveness is going to have to come from Jared Goff playing well. Baker's still kind of in no man's land. I think he's still trying to find his way, trying to find a home. We'll see how it works for him in Carolina. But he is getting another opportunity, just like Jared did. Going to Detroit, but Jared's kind of, I think, turned that corner. He's a little further ahead because he's already a year under his belt in Detroit, and I think he's going to be better this year. Where Baker's still trying to find himself there in Carolina.
All right. Well, that was 5 questions. We got our answers, and we have reached the end of the show. And I want to thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for just dropping wisdom about the quarterback position like only you can. And I want to kind of give you the floor if you have, anything going on where people can reach you, anything like that at all. The floor is yours.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to come on and talk football with you. We've talked about me coming on your show for a while. I've seen you different times when I was in Nashville, and we've been able to talk a little bit there. So I'm glad I got a chance to come on your show, talk a little quarterback talk, and now it's time for me to go pick up my son from high school football practice.
Oh man! Wow.
I got to go to my daddy dues now.
Totally understand. Totally understand. Well, I won't keep you too long. Just I want to thank you again for your time. Thank everyone for tuning in. You've been tuned in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.